The 49ers are about to make a gigantic franchise-altering mistake with Brock Purdy, paying a good quarterback great quarterback money. He's coming off a down year where the 49ers slipped to 6-11, last place in the West. Most of his numbers regressed from 2023, and his production dipped after the 49ers' bevy of offensive injuries ensued. Without Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, and Brandon Ayuk, when the 49ers didn't have their full cast of Monstars, Avengers, whatever you want to call them, Purdy just looked regular. It's rumored he's seeking $50 million a year, which would put him above Patrick Mahomes and Matt Stafford. And the higher the number he takes, the lower the number his supporting cast can receive, and the 49ers will suffer. The 5 weeks, weeks 12 through 17, that Trent Williams missed at the end of the year impacted Purdy the most. That's what we'll focus on today. But we also have to factor in no Christian McCaffrey dominating in the run game and sucking up coverages underneath in the pass game, and also no Brandon Ayuk stretching defenses out deep and dominating in man coverage thanks to a torn ACL in week 7. Without these three, Purdy looks just like a guy, not a quarterback who should command $50 million a year. The Week 15 game against the Rams was the most crucial of the season. The 49ers were still in the playoff hunt at 6-11, would likely be eliminated if they lost, but they mustered just 6 points on offense, lost 12-6, dropped the next 3 games in a row to end the season, and yeah, 6-11 disaster. Because Trent Williams was out, Purdy's average time to throw went from 3.12 all the way down to just 2.7. The Niners started peppering the underneath areas of the field. So besides quick deep balls outside, Purdy couldn't push the ball to the intermediate areas like he's accustomed to, his bread and butter, especially because of McCaffrey being out. He would always suck up space and attention underneath, forcing linebackers to fly up and create those intermediate windows. Well, now none of that was happening at all. With no CMC threat out of the backfield and less pass protection up front, Shanahan shifted Debo into the backfield more to provide that same underneath pressure on defenses to create more open windows in the intermediate areas for the crosser. But without Debo as a receiver now, and Ayuk hurt, we're trotting out Jawan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, and Chris Conley. The Rams and everybody else started playing more man coverage against him because of this. Debo has always struggled against man anyway, and because of the injury to Ayuk, the man beater, nobody could get open. Defenses started playing a lot of too high safety coverages too, because without CMC, you're just not worried about the run game anymore. And with Jordan Mason and Isaac Orendo instead, the efficiency of the run game dropped off a cliff, and teams felt more comfortable sitting back and not having to play aggressively in the box. Like I said, McCaffrey would always garner so much attention. There were multiple examples in this Rams game where a zone linebacker simply wasn't worried about whoever the backfield option was, and just sank back to take away other receivers. In the past, teams would take these middle defenders and bracket McCaffrey so that he couldn't run any sort of option routes or whatever he would do to get open. But now that he's not here, watch how Christian Rozeboom pays no attention to Orendo and sinks back and squeezes the window. Without McCaffrey, defenses could get away with treating the back just like any average player, didn't have to double him, so they could use that extra body to send towards the rest of the 49ers receivers. You can see the second level getting tons of depth sinking right into the intermediate area, which is exactly where the concept is designed. Plus, Brandon Ayuk was often the guy running these backside dig routes where he'd break open late over the middle, but with Ricky Pearsall running them, they just didn't hit the same. This also leads us into how defenses started attacking Trent's backup Jalen Moore, especially by using load fronts. In the typical 4-down front, defenses usually put 2 linemen on each side of the formation, but to ensure one-on-one matchups, load fronts make sure that Moore has to block somebody one-on-one. Putting him on an island instead of Trent Williams created a tighter pocket for Purdy, forcing him to step up and gun the ball deep. While this ends up being the right read, look at how tight this man coverage is. Since defenses could play more man coverage, there was less separation, and because the middle zones were clogged up more, it forced Purdy to push the ball down the field more for one-on-one 50-50 balls, not the typical efficient yards after the catch offensive scheme the 49ers are known for. Purdy's deep ball rate increased 50% in weeks 12 through 17, and his screen rate jumped too. In fact, it doubled. Shanahan was looking to manufacture offense with all these injuries because Purdy didn't have time to throw and his receivers weren't creating separation for his man coverage. So, time to throw screen after screen. But because there wasn't the usual distracting factors like McCaffrey, Ayuk, Debo down the field, the screens just weren't very effective. A week later, it was more of the same for the offense. The Dolphins mixed in a lot of too high zone coverages because, again, they weren't worried about the run game. And watch how without McCaffrey, they sink back into the middle lanes and clog them up. The deep half safety isn't worried about Debo going deep at all, so he condenses that side of the field too, and nobody is open. The Dolphins also attack Jalen Moore. They use load fronts too, but also put a linebacker over the guard and the one technique to the other side. They did this so the guard can help outside on Moore because the backer might blitz, and the center is basically forced to slide to the one technique to protect the A-gap. With Trent on the field, you could put him on an island no problem, then just slide everybody to the other side. But with Moore, not only is he a problem area, teams are scheming him up to specifically attack him, and it affected the 49ers big time. So, how does this relate to Purdy if there are all these factors heavily negatively affecting the 49ers? Well, an offense that still has Kittle, Juszczyk, and Debo is still at least average. And I believe when you strip away assets around the quarterback, you find out more about him, not less. As I mentioned earlier, when defenses played more man coverage and clogged the middle, Purdy's deep ball percentage climbed. When defenses play man coverage a lot, it's because they feel their guys are better than your guys. So now the 49ers' typical schemed up offense was gone. Things became more on Purdy to win with his arm than with Shanahan's scheme. And because defenses kept clogging the middle, he had to rely on deep bombs outside, and he's just not that good at them. His yards per attempt, QB rating, and completion percentage on throws of 20 plus yards all slipped because he doesn't have the necessary deep accuracy and touch to consistently complete these passes. For example, the 49ers dial up this Mills concept, the perfect call to beat this quarter-half coverage the Rams kept playing. Quarter-half means these two have quarters or fourths of the field deep, then this safety has to cover an entire half. Mills is a known quarters beater because usually the safety bites down on the dig because it's right under his nose, leaving the receiver open on the outside up the middle since the cornerback is expecting help from his safety, so he stays outside leverage to funnel the receiver towards that help. And then, this is why it works. But when Purdy hits the top of his drop and sees a safety who is biting up for Kittle, Purdy has the right read, but look at the throw way too far up the seam instead of way out in front where Pearsall can run underneath it. Another issue I have with Purdy is he just misses too many easy throws. This could certainly be due to the condensed pockets thanks to no Trent Williams, but not every offensive line is going to have a Trent Williams. And if we're looking at what Purdy's play style is, since he doesn't have the rocket arm or elite movement skills, he's going to have to execute consistently every single play because he can't afford to miss on 4, 5, 6 yard throws due to his limitations. For example, on 3rd and 6, the Rams are again showing this quarter-half coverage, which would mean Jalen McCullough would be the flat defender. The 49ers have this out route to Kittle at the sticks, but at the snap, the Rams rotate into cover 3 zone, where Cameron Kitchens is the flat defender, so he has leverage on Kittle, but Purdy overcommits to the out route and takes a sack. You can see him reading this late rotation disguise at the snap, but he doesn't process it correctly, and could have at least tried to dump off the ball to the semi-open Debo to pick up the 6 yards, better than taking a sack. My main problem with Purdy isn't that he's a bad quarterback, it's that I believe there's a threshold of good NFL quarterback and he just barely clears it. He is a starter, but you have to view him as a guy who's not going to be a premier talent at the position, so you can't pay him as such. At $50 million, you're paying for the guy he's gonna be, not the guy he is right now. You're banking big time on his development, his improvement, which could certainly happen, but it's too much of a risk to pay for like it's already happened. Of course, every team has a plan coming into the year fully healthy. The 49ers plan coming into last year wouldn't have been the same if they didn't have CMC, Trent Williams, and Ayuk from the get-go. So that is tough on the quarterback, I'll give you that. But when you strip away some of the parts, it shows what you really have rather than what you don't. I made a video a few years ago comparing Purdy to Jimmy Garoppolo, and I still see them as strikingly similar players in terms of their impact. They're quarterbacks who can execute Shanahan's scheme at a high level, can conduct a high-octane offense, guys who you hope continue to develop into that premier Tom Brady, Joe Montana type guy, where you have the legendary coach and the QB who keeps developing more and more with age. But at the end of the day, Garoppolo and Purdy are not guys who can elevate this 49ers offense. Just keep it humming until the shite hits the fan. The quality of the 2023 Super Bowl roster doesn't come around very often. It probably will never come around again. And that was with Purdy just making the $800,000 or whatever. He gets paid, now you have to strip away a Deebo Samuel, some key defensive pieces. Basically, again, what just happened last year. I like Brock Purdy, but this is a pivotal moment for the San Francisco 49ers. Because if they pay him big, that could lead to big problems.